So let's get into some climate change news. Well, where climate change meets political ridiculousness. Climate change to the real Donald Trump. Ignore me at your peril. Hurricane Hannah right now blowing over the mighty Trump wall between U.S. and Mexico. If y'all can see this, hopefully you can. That's lovely. Hilarious. The sound of walls hitting the ground as a hurricane comes and says, yeah, yeah, no. Yeah, no. Gene says Cuomo is an authoritarian game player. Yeah. Yes. LC, the whole brother shtick was vomit inducing. Yes, yes. He's terrible. I mean, but we can go on and on about, you know, we know that the Democrats aren't really any different than the Republicans. They're way better at saying that they care. We care. And everyone's like, "Oh, that's so awesome that you care." And then they go do really terrible things. At least, at least on the Republican side is they just are like, "Yeah, we don't care." on that on that level, they're somewhat authentic in the fact that they just don't really care. Yes, nature doesn't care about Trump, or nature doesn't care Trump, right? Flip, floop, right? Yeah, good stuff. I always like to see climate change rearing its ugly head and making seemingly important, human issues very unimportant. This is, I don't know, somewhat laughable tweet by this guy, Mike Hudema. Humans are creating the third great extinction. So he's posting a video that says sixth mass extinction and he says third. And I'm like, it's sixth. Do you want, where'd you get third from? If we don't change our ways, 99.9% of critically endangered species will be lost. Well, just critically endangered species, 99%. What about what about other species? How about all species? It's extinction. The third great extinction means all species, not critically endangered species. I don't know. This guy is a real Green New Dealer. He's like, oh yes, we really need green. Green New Deal is going to save the planet. So I don't know. This guy is like he believes in climate change, but he's somewhat spreading misinformation about climate change because he's not telling you the information, the reality of where climate change is at. He's not even saying the way this is worded is just bizarre, right? We're in the third great extinction event, meaning extinction for everyone, not critically endangered species. I just love the whole soft gloving downplaying of this. Anyways, he's trying to care, and I guess we'll give him that. Yeah, that guy does not know words. Uh, yes, no or no, very unimportant, like building walls around golf courses, right? LC said, I thought we were in the seventh. Yes, well, if you're really up on science, we're in the seventh, not the sixth, but he's way behind because he says third. Like, third? Where did you get that? Ah. Let's keep going. This news out of, I'm assuming the UK, anywhere where Extinction Rebellion exists, or Greenpeace, so I guess that's globally. Extinction Rebellion, Greenpeace And Greenpeace, so they've joined forces, campaign for a breakup between big tech and big oil. Okay. Will this save the planet is the question. Employing disparate tactics, okay. The activist organizations want Amazon, Google, and Microsoft to stop helping the fossil fuel industry extract more oil and gas. Okay, let's see what they have to say about this. When Sam Kern started working at Google 4 years ago, she believed she could drive change as an insider. Ha, ha. If she could just get the ear of the right executives, Kern thought, she could convince them to move the company in a new direction on climate and sustainability. Here's a news flash, I guess, and just a general information for people who think they can change things from the inside. It takes a whole lot of pressure from the outside to get the inside to move. And you're not going to pressure people from the inside very much. But over time, Kern said she realized powerful moneyed interests made that impossible. Kern, a user experience engineer, described company leaders as putting up a wall between the business interests and human interests, even as they seemed to recognize the severity of the climate crisis, which made conversations with them feel emotionally disconnected. So Kern turned to more direct activism. After becoming involved with the employee group Googlers for Climate Action. That's a hilarious name, Googlers for Climate Action. Kern joined thousands of tech workers who walked out of their offices during last September's global climate strike to demand bold climate commitments from their employers, and she didn't stop there. Kern left Google in May and joined the radical climate activist group Extinction Rebellion. Wow. Which earlier this month launched a digital campaign, BigTechLovesBigOil.com, targeting tech majors Google, Microsoft, and Amazon for providing oil and gas companies with cloud computing services, custom artificial intelligence, and machine learning tools. All right, good job, Kern. Good job, Sam Kern. By then, Greenpeace had also launched an effort to stop Amazon, Google, and Microsoft from working with big oil in ways that help oil and gas companies extract fossil fuels and cause further global warming. Well, there's a basic reason why this happens, and that basic reason is that all these companies, this entire economy is built on growth. You can't sustain these companies without growth, and growth is the thing that's killing the planet. Growth, growth, growth. They all believe in growth. Whether it's green growth or brown growth or whatever, black growth, whatever you want to call it. As the paper highlighted, in May, Greenpeace published Oil in the Cloud, a report that said 3 tech giants had spent years pursuing lucrative deals to supply Chevron, Shell, BP, and ExxonMobil with technology to enhance fossil fuel extraction and production. As the paper highlighted, all 3 tech majors have bold, public-facing sustainability commitments centered around reducing their company's carbon footprint and investing in renewable energy. Elizabeth Jardim, a senior corporate campaigner for Greenpeace USA and the report's co-author, said she worries that tech companies could offer the oil and gas industry a lifeline at a time when oil prices have fallen amid the coronavirus pandemic and a growing divestment movement. I don't think these solutions will totally save the oil and gas industry, but they're certainly helping an industry that should be on the way out to hold on, said Jardim, who sees the Greenpeace and Extinction Rebellion campaigns as complementary. Taking different approaches to achieving the shared vision of a big tech, big oil breakup, Greenpeace is engaging the tech companies in dialogue, while Extinction Rebellion attacks them on social media. Both see a prime opportunity for the cause during a national reckoning on race, climate, and COVID-19. With a combination of internal pressure from tech employees and external pressure from public supporters, they hope a moment for real change might be at hand. Amazon, Google, and Microsoft referred Inside Climate News to past statements and sustainability commitments when asked about their contracts with oil and gas companies. Google and Amazon declined to comment, of course, on the Extinction Rebellion campaign, while Amazon did not respond to requests for comment. Targeting enduring ties between tech and oil, as the global environmental NGO Greenpeace has a long history of engaging with and pressuring tech companies to be more sustainable. Jardim and her colleagues approached tech companies about the contracts with big oil. Move, she said, led to an ongoing conversation. While writing the report, Jardim said that the majority of contracts she reviewed were for increasing oil and gas production, a discovery she found deeply problematic. Any production enhancements that the cloud companies are offering to oil and gas companies to the end of improving production efficiency is a loss for the climate, Jardim said. She hopes that tech majors will instead harness their technology to help scale up renewables. But the reality is that the internet and tech companies are gobbling lots and lots of energy. And the reality is that the growth and sustainability of all this use of the internet and these new technologies is not going to happen with green technologies, at least not right now. I would like the internet to be something that could continue to run on sustainable or renewable energy type systems. However, the amount of energy that they're using is just off the charts, right? And growing every single day. So I don't know. It's a pretty big reckoning, right? No representation, kind of like what we're doing now, Kevin, using lots of energy. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it would be wonderful and great if the internet could be powered by renewable energy. I don't know how that's going to happen. I guess this is a good plan to try and get them to break up their ties to the oil industry, or at least to raise awareness around it, or encourage some kind of conversation about it. But again, that has to go back to the conversation around growth, period. The growth of our economy, the growth of our civilization. What is the internet used for? It's more and more predominantly it's for shopping, right? Shopping for things that people don't need, non-essential items and goods, right? It's not. It was the information highway a long, long time ago. It was about knowledge and power, the power of knowledge, and communication, and news, and information. And now, more and more the internet is about shopping. So, how you're going to have to completely reimagine what we see the internet as being used for. Clay Baum, I heard the internet uses more fossil fuel than airplanes. I wouldn't doubt that. Maybe. Just the energy uses by cryptocurrency alone is gigantic, right? Kuro Hikes, thank you so much for the super chat. We need to round up every single politician, federal agent, Wall Street banker, and try them for treason. They stole our country, stole our future, stole our freedom. We have nothing left to lose. I totally concur. Well, we actually have a lot more to lose. I will disagree with I mean, we have nothing left to lose. We have nothing left. We have a lot more to lose if we don't do something about the state that we're in, the situation that we're in. So, yeah, we have nothing left to lose, or we have a lot more to lose. Either way you look at it. Fairy Dust, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate you. I like the rainbow. Gene, we need a speech forum that can't be blocked without due process. Right. So that's the thing, is the internet is turning more and more into a place of censorship, right? So it's supposed to be the information superhighway, and it's becoming a place filled with disinformation, misinformation, censorship, right? Um, and limiting people's, limiting ideas and speech, and limiting people's abilities to have conversations. And more, it's becoming about shopping and marketing. Yeah, no representation. Yes, it's still an information highway, but it's becoming increasingly censored. Like I have to go through, in order for my channel to continue to grow and for me to reach people, I have to go through this weird set of steps in order to make sure that my videos are seen and not demonetized, and not that my videos don't have their visibility lessened, and that I'm not censored. So the information highway is being shut down day by day. Um, Conscious Agent says if peak oil happens, we will switch to more coal instead, possibly, depending on where we're at when that happens. Let's move on. Uh, so at least Huffington Post at least has something about climate change. So many articles about what's happening today, and they uh, have an article about what we don't have to halt climate action to fight racism. Well, absolutely. Um, Late last month, the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer lit a tinderbox of outrage that has been simmering for months, years, generations. That outrage has pulled Americans out of social isolation and into the streets in all 50 states and inspired protests around the world. They show no signs of stopping. In fact, they show every sign of winning. This is different, this is big, and it's everywhere. Well, remember last year when Extinction Rebellion, you know, was out protesting and forced many countries and many cities and many governments to accept that we're in a climate emergency, or at least admit that we're in a climate emergency. Um, when they shut down many streets and many businesses and many transportation hubs in order to remember that. Remember when that happened? That was just a year ago. And as with that protest, this protest, um, they don't want they want awareness to go away around this, right? Because this is, uh, this could alter the way that people do business. However, Black Lives Matter doesn't actually doesn't actually jeopardize the status quo as much as climate change action does, or as much as awareness around climate change does. Uh, yes, it does. It does challenge the status quo on certain levels, but um, all the corporations and government and our growth economy, our industrial civilization can continue to grow, and we can continue to sell things to people, and we can continue to have our economy continue to go on, and change things surrounding structural racism, et cetera, right? Or police brutality, et cetera. We can continue. Civilization can continue to work the way that it's working. But it cannot continue. The growth paradigm cannot continue if you actually accept that climate change is a problem, and a very serious one. That's a difference in the movements, but nonetheless, both are real, both are relevant, both are legitimate and need to be addressed. Anyways, even in the climate movement, which has long stuck to the sidelines in moments like this, advocates and organizations are publicly declaring that Black Lives Matter. They are finally standing up and speaking out in defense of Black people's right to breathe. It's about damn time. There's just one problem. The new commitment to black people often seems to come with an assumption that the fight for climate justice has to halt. As a quote unquote climate person, my social media feeds are awash in calls to pause climate activism for the sake of supporting black people, as though the two are mutually exclusive. Excellent point. As a black climate person, I can't tell you how disorienting this is. Excellent point. There used to be a myth in the environmental circles that black people don't care about the environment or about climate issues. It's not necessarily a myth. There are a lot of black people that don't care about the climate or don't care about climate issues. There are more black people. It's becoming more relevant. And as I read a few weeks ago in that poll, when I brought attention to that poll, that more people of color are concerned about climate change or see climate change as an immediate threat than white people do, that was very eye-opening and very interesting. However, just like any other portion of the population, there's plenty of white people who don't care about climate change and plenty of black people who don't care about climate change. There's a lot of data to prove that this is not true, but I don't need that data because I've been around black people my whole life and I've never met one who didn't care about the environment or about animals. I've met plenty, though, who don't care for environmentalists, and I understand why. Typically, when the environment movement has attempted to reach out to black communities, it turns into something I've called existential exceptionalism. Conversation goes something like, oh, you're worried about police violence. Well, you need to be worried about these polar bears. Climate change is framed as the issue that threatens all of us and therefore should be everyone's priority. Well, that's actually totally true. There's actually that's factually true on every level. Climate change is an issue that threatens all of us, quote unquote, and therefore should be everyone's priority. Absolutely, everyone's priority. Climate change, the myth goes, is the great equalizer. And that also is true. It is the great equalizer because it will affect everyone. Don't think that it won't. Ask the rich people in Malibu who had all their homes burned down from a forest fire. Ask all the people in Newport Beach who had their homes flooded out from a king tide. It's going to hit everybody. Obviously, it's going to affect poor people and the vulnerable, more quickly, of course. But, I imagine it's going to take out, it just is going to take out whoever it takes out. Not only is this approach dismissive and insensitive, the premise is simply untrue. It's been documented again and again that climate change hurts black people first and worst, both in the United States and globally. Moreover, black people did the least to create the problem, and our systemic oppression runs directly parallel to the climate crisis. Climate change takes any problem you already had, any threat were already under, and multiplies it. Absolutely. When you take a population that has lived in chronic crisis under constant threat for generations, from police violence to housing discrimination to general disenfranchisement, and add yet another threat, that's not just a recipe for catastrophe. With the climate crisis itself, the storms and the temperatures, it's not so much that the game is rigged, it's the playing field. Climate change is not the great equalizer, it's the great multiplier. I think, one of the reasons why people have thought that black people don't care about climate change is because, yes, there are people of color or people who are poor or people who are disenfranchised have immediate survival issues, right? If you're threatened by police violence, if you're threatened with a lack of food, if you're threatened with a lack of housing, if you're threatened with a lack of health care, if you're threatened with, if you're concerned with, day-to-day survival is utmost in your mind, then you're not going to necessarily have the time or energy or awareness to be concerned about climate change. Right? That's just, I think that's basically logical. And so if you are a white person who has food on the table or a good job, or, you have access to education or information, and you have some kind of free time or downtime to think about these things, well, then, yes, it becomes more of an issue that you can be concerned about. I think that's the main divide that people have been operating under But it's becoming, it's something of a topic of awareness for everyone, right? White people, black people, everyone is becoming aware of the problem of climate change. And again, I will bring up the poll that I read a few weeks ago. People of color see climate change as much more of a threat than white people. And maybe we could talk about why that is. Again, maybe some white people are able to be cushioned from the threat of climate change because of their income, or because of their comfortability, their comfort level, right? They can kind of just shrug it off and not worry about it. But yeah, this is a great point that this author brings up, that it's a multiplier. It's a great multiplier. It's gonna, the issue of racism and police brutality and injustice go hand in hand with the issue of climate change. But it all has to be in the equation of what we're going to do, how we're going to move into the future. So the powers that be are going to continue to exert control over people, whether they're concerned about the climate crisis or racism, and that control is going to be is going to look like authoritarianism. That control is going to look like brutality, and it's going to look like brutality to everyone. Cougar W says, "Hey all, I've been posting live streams with my wife on YouTube. Current topics, see coronavirus and climate change. Check us out. You can see me ranting like a mad scientist, because I am." All right, Cougar W, we'll check you out. Gene says, "Latinos often work in agriculture and have connections to people in Central and South America who generally are directly dependent on agriculture and fishing." Indeed, right. Kuro Hikes, why would black people fight for a planet that they are not welcome on? Yes. That's a connection between Black Lives Matter and climate. Right. Absolutely. And that's, the multiplier aspect is the hard part, right? Because you're fighting against racism and climate change at the same time. Again, I brought up the talk by the marine biologist a few weeks ago as well, who said, like, imagine, if we didn't have structural racism to fight against, imagine what could be done in the face of climate change. Imagine what kind of innovations of thought or technology could happen in the face of climate change if people were not stifled by structural inequity, right? However, all of these things must be dealt with, and must be dealt with immediately, right? So one is not more important than the other or less important. They are of equally large magnitude, right? And however, if everybody's extinct, then it really won't matter whether we live in a racist system or not, right? So there's that. You got to fight against a racist system, but you also have to understand that if the system itself is continuing to chew up the planet, it won't really matter whether the system gets any better or less brutal or less racist. It's not going to matter. The system is going to go on chewing up the planet. So you have to realize, everyone has to realize, no matter your sex or your race, what part you play in the chewing up of the planet, what part of the system you play, or that you take your place in the system, how you take in your place in the system contributes on some level to chewing up the planet. Alhim F says yes. Can't wait for the future. Indeed. Let's move on to the last thing I wanted to cover today, and this is from Arctic News. Sam Carana. This is from today. Arctic sea ice could disappear completely within 2 months' time. Arctic sea ice fell by 3.239 million kilometers in extent in 25 days. Good Lord. That's in 1 month. From July 1st to July 25th. Melting will likely continue for another 2 months. If it continues on its current trajectory, the remaining 6.333 million kilometers of Arctic sea ice could disappear completely within 2 months' time. Could. This is not a case of will, but this is a case of could disappear. The fallen extent, because we lost half of this remaining, half of the remaining 6 million kilometers of sea ice, we lost that in 1 month. We have 2 months of melt left. So do the math. The fallen extent over the next 2 months, time may not remain as steep as it was in July, yet the sea ice could still disappear completely. One reason for this is that over the years, sea ice thickness has been declining even faster than extent. The rapid decline in sea ice thickness is illustrated by the sequence of images below. The image on the right further illustrates that sea ice is getting very thin, which threatens the latent heat tipping point to get crossed. Sea currents and the Coriolis force will make that the influx of warm, salty water into the Arctic Ocean will continue, with no buffer of sea ice left underneath the surface of the sea ice. With no buffer of sea ice left underneath the surface of the sea ice to absorb incoming ocean heat, more heat will accumulate in the Arctic Ocean, threatening that the methane hydrates tipping point will get crossed. The Navy.mil animation below was run on July 24th, 2020 and shows sea ice thickness over 30 days. Last 8 frames are forecast for July 25th to August 8th. Here we go. And look at how little thick ice we have left, and all that is left is thin ice. Look how much of that is thin ice and how much we have left. Anyways, here's another indication that the buffer is disappearing fast north of Greenland and of the Canadian Arctic archipelago. See, some 700 kilometers from the North Pole, sea ice is disappearing precisely where the thickest sea ice used to be located. We're going to look at this. See here, guys. In summary, Arctic sea ice may disappear completely over the next 2 months for a number of reasons. Low Arctic sea ice extent, low Arctic sea ice thickness, high ocean temperature, high greenhouse gas levels, and high temperatures over the Arctic. Distorted jet stream causing extreme weather such as storms, resulting in sea ice collapse. The situation is dire and calls for immediate, comprehensive, and effective action as described in the climate plan. That does not look good, guys. That does not look good, guys. Not on any level. We literally lost the equivalent of half of the remaining sea ice in 1 month. We have 2 months left. Again, if you're just doing basic simple math, if the ice melts at the same rate that it melted in July, that pretty much says zero ice. Again, a blue ocean event would be at 1 million square kilometers of ice left. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe, and you can support the channel The links below, PayPal, Patreon, Square. Also, if you'd like to watch the live streams, you can watch the live streams on my Patreon channel. You can subscribe for as little as $1. So hopefully I will see you over there, and thanks so much.